We're going to look like a hot mess today. It has been a day, friends. In just a few minutes, we are going to be joined by Christie Henderson. And I think here she is. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Are you Elizabeth?
I am. It's nice to meet you. Well, it says Shirley,
Nice,
but I am Liz. Yes.
I do that every once in a while. I'll log in on Dr. Jack's account and people start calling me Ashley. I'm like, no, that's not my name.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Christie, thank you so much for meeting with us. And so what we're doing here is we are just recording kind of a 15-minute session about your area of expertise. So when our top students are in their last semester, which for several of our students will be this coming spring, this will be kind of a mix of guest speakers. Since we don't have a location to meet, this is what we're doing. So we're bringing in experts in the field to talk through different topics. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm so thankful for you. And you've been in education for 20 years, yes? Is that right?
23. This is year 23, yes.
That is fantastic. And you've had different job titles and lots of experience with MTSS and working with kiddos. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you to kind of talk about the social and emotional aspects of what our teachers are going to need to know to go into and be successful in the classroom with their students.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you, first of all. It's kind of cool to be called an expert when you don't really feel like one.
Oh, you are. You are.
Normal people out there doing the work every day. I started my career teaching in second and third grade, and I loved it. I loved teaching students. But some events happened, 9/11 happened, and my husband got called into active duty and was gone for a year and a half, and I had a pretty sick child, so I had to make some decisions that took me out of the classroom, and I became a staff developer, and I absolutely loved staff development. The thing that I missed in staff development was teaching kids, though, but I knew that I couldn't go back to teaching in a classroom with the standards being what they are. So I started really thinking about what I could do, what I could give back. And I have a stepson who unfortunately has traveled a path that has landed him in some legal trouble. And he suffers from some mental illness. And so as we began, my husband and I are both educators, as we began to navigate the legal system and the mental health system, I realized that even as an educator, I was ill-equipped. So I started thinking and looking at ways that I could give back. So that's when I became a school counselor. And what I've discovered in the 3 years that I've been a school counselor is I don't think I could ever go back to teaching kids academics, because most of the students that I serve aren't ready for academics. I work in a school of about 400 students. About 79% of them qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Wow.
I would say about half of them, a good 200 of them, come from a home that doesn't look like a traditional home. I have students that are living in the homeless shelter. I have students that are living with relatives. I have right now about 61 students that are considered either homeless or in the foster care system. So when you take that information, you look at that, the kids that are coming to school, they're not ready to learn math and reading at 8 o'clock every morning. So the important thing that I've discovered along this path, this 3 years that I've been in as a school counselor, is that we have to invest a lot of time in the beginning of our day, in the beginning of our year, in reaching those bottom tiers of the Maslow triangle. We have to work on the basic safety needs. We have to teach kids that they're safe, that we love them. We have to feed them sometimes. We have to make sure they're warm. We have to make sure they don't have tags in their shirts that are scratching their back. We have to make sure that they don't have lice or bed bugs. And sometimes doing that takes more time than teaching them to read and write. And so what's important for teachers to know is they need to understand when kids come in their classroom, what has to happen before they can learn. And that's really difficult for teachers because we have these standards we have to teach. We have to teach them to read. We have to teach them to write. And we have to teach them to do math. And then, of course, we give these assessments. And if their scores aren't what the paper says they should be or the state says they should be, the teachers look like they have failed. And that's a mindset that we need to change. Because if we could measure how safe our kids feel and how loved they feel, our kids would be off the chart. So what we have to do as educators is retrain our brain. We have to start every day new, because with our kids, most of them coming from huge backgrounds of trauma and poverty, we have to understand what's happened to them. You know, what have they endured? What have they gone through? What has shaped them into who they are? So for example, if you have a kid that comes into your classroom every morning angry and just hyped up, and the cortisol level's really high and he can't sit still, at 8:05, we shouldn't be teaching them to read. We've got to calm their body down. We have to find out, did you eat? Is your belly full? Are you warm enough? Did you have a bath last night? You know, those are needs we have to take care of. And it doesn't look as nice as passing out a worksheet and having 25 kids engaged in learning. But if we don't do it, we can't teach. It's an investment of time we have to have. The other thing that's really important is relationship building. And that's really hard because some of our students come from places where they don't trust adults. The significant adults in their life aren't providing the things they need to provide. Maybe there's not a home provided. Maybe there's not a significant adult that's there at night to cook dinner and the kids are fending for themselves. So we have to build a relationship. We have to let kids know we love them. And the most important thing is grace and forgiveness. Because kids are going to do things that really push our buttons. And we have to learn that it's not what they're doing to us. They're doing something because they have a need that's not being met. Maybe that need is attention. Maybe that need is a basic physical need, and we have to figure out what it is. We can't take behavior personally. And it's hard because teachers put their heart and soul into their classroom and planning lessons. And it's hard when we have a kid that completely disrespects us. But we have to figure out why. We have to give them grace and step back and say, what need is not met right here? And how can I pull in the counselor, pull in the social worker, or pull in a mentor? What can I do to give this kid what he needs so he can learn? And knowing that after Labor Day and after conferences and after the Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and spring break, we're going to start all over because the behaviors that we have invested so much time in, it doesn't take very long for those behaviors to go back to the old way of thinking. So we have to be ready to hit that reset button. Just like our kids came back from Labor Day, we were reteaching setting boundaries again. We were practicing, creating that muscle memory. That's kind of a new term in education right now. We're using a lot as counselors as muscle memory, teaching kids, especially young kids, to do the right thing. How's it going to feel? How does your body feel when you walk in a straight line? How does your body feel when you walk but not run in the classroom? It's teaching them how their body feels when they do the right thing. It's creating what we call muscle memory, which is an academic term, but I'm going to make it a social emotional term as well.
Awesome.
So, what questions so far?
No, I think that's great. So one of the questions I have is, classroom management is one of the biggest fears of all new teachers. And when we're thinking about some of these kiddos, it could be one, it could be half of our class. But let's go to the one end of the spectrum where it's one kiddo in our classroom that has some severe social emotional issues. I may not have a para or an assistant in my classroom. So what are some ways that you have found to be helpful for teachers who are solo in the classroom but have a kiddo who is just in desperate need of some extra love and attention?
Well, unfortunately, you don't usually know about those kids until about a weekend because you have that little bit of a honeymoon period. So when you're structuring your classroom that week of in-service before your kids come, you're structuring it on what you think is going to happen. But what we have to do as teachers is be reflective and understand that whatever we have planned might have to go out the window. So for that one kid that just cannot handle his business, we need to go back to the drawing board and think about our classroom. How is it arranged? Is it arranged in such a way that that one kid is able to learn? We have to think about, where's that kid sitting? Can they see? Can they hear? Are there other kids in close proximity? Do they feel safe? Are they cold? Are they by the vent? Is the vent blowing on them? One of the biggest things I talk to teachers about, especially in old school buildings, are the overhead fluorescent lights. There's a buzz that those lights make. And for some kids that have sensory issues, that buzz drives them crazy. And they can't attend to learning because that's all they hear. Right. And so I talk to teachers a lot about, what kind of lighting are you creating in your room? Do you have lamps? Do you have a soft lighting? Do you have a lot of natural light? Those are things you can do. The other thing I really tell new teachers to do is to structure with that one kid in mind. So be that kid and look around your classroom. Are there things that are inviting that would help that kid get off task? If so, take care of them. Put them away. Look at your walls. Are they really busy? I just saw a research article out a couple days ago that talked about highly decorated classrooms are often very distracted. And so look at that. Stand back and look and see, is there something in the environment for that child that's causing them to just get off task? If you're alone in that classroom and that child starts to have an outburst or is tipping chairs or throwing furniture, the best thing you can do is protect the other kids in the classroom and have a safety plan, whether it be someone to call or a way to evacuate the other kids so that you can manage what's happening, the meltdown that's happening. But definitely communicating with other people, whether it be your teammates, because hopefully all of our teachers have someone on their grade level or across the hall that they trust, that they can call in to take their kids or to give them backup. Hopefully every teacher feels supported by their administrator and their counselor. Every teacher in my building, every para has my cell phone number. And I realize that that's not ideal, but in our building, we don't interrupt learning by using the intercom unless we have to. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's easier just for a teacher to call my cell phone, especially if I'm somewhere else in the building. And just always being able to respond and react when need be. But it's being, one of the biggest things I could tell teachers is be honest. A week in, if you have this child that is really, it's a tier 3 behavior. When you're looking at MTSS, you've got a tier 3 kid. You need to make sure that people in the building know. Professionally, they need to know as a way to become part of that team.
Awesome. So. And with the team and with collaboration, how do you keep parents in the loop? I know sometimes we have some very educated and wonderful parents that want to try everything that they can. And then we have, I had a phone call one time and the parent told me he's your problem from 8 to 3, which that doesn't happen often, but to give our students a sense of where do the parents fit on this team and this collaboration.
I think one of the biggest things I can tell you is that, and I tell teachers this a lot, and sometimes they wrinkle their nose at me, and I just kind of have to walk away and let it marinate and then come back. Our parents are sending us the best kids they have. They're not keeping the good ones at home and sending the bad ones to school. And so they're sending us the best they have. And we can really get hung up on if the parents would only, if the parents would read to their kids at night, I wouldn't have to do this, or if they would teach them to behave, I wouldn't have to do this. But those are all things outside of our control. And so what we have to do is we have to put lots of positive deposits in that bank for parents. We have to let parents know we love your child. We love them. These are the positive things we see. Even if that kid is tearing up your classroom, there's something about that kid that you have to learn to love. It's that non-contingent. He's a breathing or she's a breathing, living human being. We've got to find something to love. And really capitalizing that, calling a parent and saying, I really like Richie. He's a sweet boy. He's kind to other people. He always makes sure he picks up after himself. Now, he might have done 150 other things to really get under your skin, but if you can focus on that and then invite the parent to be on that team. I've noticed that Richard is struggling a little bit when it's time to transition. What can you tell me about what you have in place at home? Now, we might know the parent has nothing in place, but we don't ever want to come out of the gate letting a parent think that we don't believe that they're doing the best they can, because 99% of our parents are doing the best they know how. And that's the piece, the best they know how. We're educators, so we do things differently than many parents because we know what kids face at school. We have to trust that our parents are doing the best. Ask them for feedback because they know their kids better than anyone. Right. If they have that feeling that it's not my problem because they're at school, I would invite the parent, can you come in and just put an eye on Richie? Can you watch him through the door? Maybe give me some ideas. We really want to make him successful. I think as much positive front loading as you can do is really important because you will have to make a deposit or two out of that bank. And there is a point along the way where Richie might have to serve an in-school or an out-of-school suspension. And so if you've put lots of deposits in that bank and get that parent on your side, then truthfully, they'll usually come around to working with you. I think, again, grace is a big thing. We've got to give our parents grace. They might not know any better. We are very blessed in El Dorado. We have a wonderful support, South Central Mental Health. They put on a lot of workshops for our parents, love and logic, setting boundaries, conscious discipline. And so we have formed a partnership with them to help kind of refer parents to some of those parenting classes. And they're free. They provide babysitting, those kinds of things. And we're very positive about it. Some parents, we even have to say, you know, I really think you have something to contribute to this conversation. Would you consider going? So we have that. It's a blessing to us. I would say in any school that our TAP teachers work in, make a connection with the social worker, because usually social workers and counselors know those community resources and they can pull them in to do some parenting workshops. One of the things I'm starting this year and I'm super excited about, it's called Coffee with the Counselor. So one time a month, I invite my parents to come in and we have a cup of coffee. They can submit questions ahead of time or topics they want to talk about. Now, I did it in August, and I only had about 8 parents, and it was the same 8 parents that come to site council and PTO, but it was great. It was great to have those 8 parents. Right now, for my September session, I have 61 parents signed up.
61?
And I already have questions coming in and some topics that we're going to talk about. And so we're making some progress. Making myself available to parents will hopefully benefit what's happening in the classroom, and making parents advocates for their kids so they can stand with the teacher and help their kids together.
Well, that is just great information. I love the grace. I love the forgiveness. I love the conscious discipline. That's what we went through in our classroom management. We had them purchase that book because it's just some great stuff in there. And
it is.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time this morning. You had some great nuggets of truth, and I think will help. They'll breathe a little bit, knowing that every kiddo needs to be loved, and we have to sometimes put those standards aside and figure out what's going on with the kiddo. So thank you so much for your expertise.
Yes. Well, awesome. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.